Yeah, it's. I'll try and make this brief. Um, it's sort of with all the ambulances trying to set a scene, sort of thing. That's pretty much fantasy as far as I'm concerned. But because I've got no sense of urgency, I've got no sense of an urgent need to increase my involvement with with the psychiatric local psychiatric unit. But they sort of seem to be brainwashing the very people they're going out. They're getting to go out, not least, to perform their adverts and stuff like that. And also in the process, maybe themselves. I guess from the state I see people getting into these days and various things that get said at certain times. So yeah, they're sort of like I said, with me, like I said, the type of stuff I do sort of nullifies it, takes most, if not all, of the meaning out of different things that go on that are intended to advertise and keep their ball rolling, as I keep saying. But yeah, another thing. Now they're trying to build. I'm guessing they're trying to build up the psychiatric unit to try and make the past 25 years and their harebrained schemes during the past 25 years look good for the advert. And to try and make to try and elevate the status of the psychiatric unit and yet again normalise Johnny and Baby, and you know, and in terms of, and I would suggest this in terms of cynically, in a way, maybe unconsciously, using disabled people in wheelchairs to promote the psychiatric unit, to promote the harebrained schemes of the past 25 of the 25 years that went on, to promote all manner of ideas that I'm just not fucking interested in, positive or negative, you know, and whatever case they make, I'll pretty much know the arguments they put against me saying stuff like that pretty much fall flat, like I said, like so many other things. But yeah, which I pretty much would gather they sort of know that to a certain extent, the powers behind the ad agency. But yeah, almost constant supply of ambulances trying to you know, condition me, but in the process, but instead of that, because of what I've been doing, in no small part, but also with all these ambulances, sort of conditioning the people who are watching this, including the people I'm guessing who are who've got the power to engineer ambulances and so on and so forth, to try and bring about relationships, they're pure fantasy, or the nature of relationships, like my relationship with psychiatry, to bring about fantasy notions of it that just don't work long term. You know, it just really does beg a belief. And we'll carry on getting. Obviously, we're going to carry on getting ambulances, and there will be a big deal attempts at drama around the pharmacy over there. That's sort of why they didn't. I'm guessing, didn't deliver meds. I think I mentioned this before last week. You know, again, trying to engineer, like they tried to engineer for the Easter holiday weekend, some sort of massive dynamo, maybe, I don't know. Interesting. I mentioned that van. It's a fallen angel. I've explained that. That coincided with Easter, isn't it? It's sort of, like I said, it's one belief system, the architects, co-ops another belief system, psychiatry, and then that belief system, under the influence of the architects, goes around just about co-opting every institution, every organisation, every other belief system that you could possibly imagine. So it's little wonder that they're centred around ambulances. Like I say, it's not conditioning me, but it may well be conditioning the public and their troop, the people who perform all the adverts when I go out and about, and don't perform those adverts when I'm not out, when I'm not in their presence. Like I said, that's the nature of this sort of advertising. But also another element to it as well, and that is they've, I get fatigued I wouldn't begin, and I get a lack of motivation and interest in certain activities that I like to pick up, like reading, for example, at the moment. Other things as well, exercise even, which sort of hints at the strange relationship, in my opinion, the NHS has got with psychiatry. When you consider that exercise is actually good for people, but maybe that's not intended for me. So they can try through me to condition the public and whoever the audience is to go along with their harebrained schemes. So right now, I would love to get into a meaty book, and get back to a sense of homeliness. Reading's good for you. There's a psychological vibe to it that's different to other forms of media. I suppose every form of media has got its own vibe, and I like the one with reading. But again, it's like the ad campaign comes first. The ad campaign comes first. And I'll be, and that is to try and get me sitting here so they can like the photographer, the one of the architects, they can, and the rest of the architects who assign meaning and all sorts of stuff in ways that really worked out, I'm sure. but so they can do that sort of thing. They can, I'm sitting here, and they send around ambulance. It sort of sets the scene, doesn't it? Again, hinting not only at that it's like a Hollywood B movie looking at all this stuff, an ad campaign, but the thinking behind it is like something you'd expect from a Hollywood B movie director and producer. But that's the way I see it. This is the way it seems to me. Why else would there be the pharmacological uses to stop me from reading a bloody book? I actually do enjoy doing stuff like that. And I would like to do it. I'd like to pick up a book and read a book. But because of as far as I can tell, because yet again, these, I can only call them crazy now, these crazy people are running around yet again, and I could point out something that happened in the final moments of me being on the ward that was yet again a repetition of something else. All these attempts, Dynamol fever, rerun fever, and all the rest of it. And it's like, well, what if I'm not fucking interested? And again, we get the repetition, like what happens between 2016 to 2025, of just stopping me from doing stuff, because they've got various, a whole heap of preoccupations. And I happen, because of the architects, to be the centre of that. When really, like I said, all those years ago, it's that's not possible now for them to go back and say, well, what you're saying doesn't really add up. Like with the boyhood character who became Mr. Dynamic, all of a sudden, really carried away and all that. That's the nature of it. So yeah, like I said, maybe now I'll be allowed to read a book. Maybe I'll be allowed to do a bit of exercise. This is all pretty interesting when you think of the not that again they may try to characterise this in various ways, but this is actually a critique and I think a pretty astute one. When you look at the history, some of the history of psychiatry, the little I do know about it, which in some ways is also picking apart what I've seen down the years, all these and the type of people, the people I've met, most of them have been great, but there are things I could point out, but maybe that's for another time. But I think the important thing is, just sort of trying to set the scene with the watching audience, for example. There is an element of that. Make no mistake about that. There is an element of that. Trying to set the scene for them, trying to escalate stuff, maybe bring about a look again for denouements and reruns and all the rest of it. Wait until I have to get in touch with the pharmacy. You will see stuff going on there, as we know has already been arranged, and all the rest of it. But yeah, it's like like I said, I've got some good walking in the past 2 days. It would be nice to do some exercise. Maybe I'll be allowed to. It would be nice to read a book and, get into a few things, I sort of think are good for me. And as I enjoy, like the one psychiatrist said, go out and enjoy yourself. Words to that effect. Well, now we see that that's not really the intention, I'd guess. So sort of conditioning themselves, the public, trying to prepare scenarios around bullshit like the pharmacy is going to go on, the perfect pharmacy, and so on. Because I do think, on the basis of my experience at least, I do think that there should be a more savvy examination of psychiatry within the NHS. Because also psychiatry has also, the ad agency has also tried to arrange some relationship between me and the NHS and some counterposition, or whatever the term is, between me and the NHS. The things I'm saying is primarily about psychiatry that took its lead from the architects, to the point where here I am on a bank holiday Monday. I would like to exercise. I'm not allowed. I would like to read a book. I'm not allowed, because the ad agency wants and needs to condition the audience, and in turn, in no small part, condition themselves, as I've seen countless times, around yet more attempts at denouements and reruns. That does them no good whatsoever. If I'm left to my own devices, I can do pretty damn well, thank you very much. But anyway, so again, with co-opting certain issues, trying to build up the Robertson Centre, not least because I said, I wouldn't go there again. And I'd rather deal with those people in email. I think, on the basis of everything I see and what goes on, I think that's a pretty wise move. these people are, in my view, are pretty much acting in ways that I think it's wise to just back off from them, and handle things in a more systematic, neutral, calmer, more mature, more professional, even though I'm not a professional, a more systematic, a more workable, a more practical way than they're approaching things, from what I can tell. But anyway, there will be drugs. We know, we already know that me saying that there'll be drugs to make that look anything with me, to make that look anything but what I've said. But despite the way I appear, I would rather have practical, something that's going to work long term, which is me getting into the swing of living an enjoyable life of solitude. Getting on, doing some exercise. I am 55. I do need to do this stuff, as the time on the ward demonstrated. I do need to look after myself physically and mentally. For example, reading stuff that I'm really interested in. So we'll see. I mean, as I've said, right, if you are watching this, the chances are you are being conditioned to perceive a certain type of drama that owes so much to I'll call it an ad agency, like I am. But you are being conditioned. There are attempts to condition me. The way I've been doing things and I've handled things mean that has failed with me. And that is another indication of what the ad agency is really like, because with all the efforts they put in, a reliable science, an effective science, would question their approach more than what they are. But I'm arguing that this isn't an effective science. When you have to use pharmacology, when your arguments fall flat, to try and make your arguments seem valid. For example, South Asians, people, the extremely limited and propagandized roles that people perform in front of the cameras for the watching audience, and to try and get me thinking in certain ways about how life is lived. But I know people's lives are more complex. What I'm being presented with, richer and more complex, like I've said in the past about YouTube videos, richer and more complex than what the propaganda, what the adverts are portraying, and so on. I love making these videos, just like I loved walking around the car park yesterday. I really enjoyed that. But yeah, so like I said, when you watch, you are the viewing audience. When you see ambulances and so on and so forth going past, know that you not only are there attempts to condition me, there are attempts to condition you. A scene is being set to try, as I'm drugged up, to try and perform like for the local psychiatric unit, people, disabled people, not even knowing that they're part of that, attempt to advertise for reasons on question, a local psychiatric unit that I'm just not interested in. But again, like with the NHS, they've tried to, and South Asians and people I'm not interested in, like them down there, to try and drag me into the type of relationships with those entities that are just fantasy. It's like, how, I mentioned colonisation and stuff like that before. But anyway, I'm going to have to sit around, and I am chilling, whatever is, like when I was in the room at the hospital, chilling most of the time, as they ran around and so on and so forth, all on edge, all on tenterhooks a bit of the time, and kicking off at times, and then trying to engineer big deal dramatic moments and so on and so forth. But yeah, so yeah, they'll carry on. Like I said, they are conditioning you to, with some sort of narrative that is just, it's pretty much falling flat with me in pretty big ways. But anyway, like I said, unlikely that I'm going to feel a sense of homeliness today. Jumped up again, as you would expect. And that's the way it's going to be. Yeah, I pretty much said all I wanted to say in this. Even though I'm working towards enjoying my solitude more and more, getting into a realistic tempo that's realistic to who I genuinely am, who I really am, not least and including the roles I play. Getting into things that I'm interested in, that I'm genuinely interested in. Now, I ain't interested in being conditioned for someone else's narrative, for someone else's big deal drama. That was the case with the architects. Just because they come up to institutions like psychiatry, even though times have moved on in many ways they ain't. As you can see, because the case with the architects were, they would just keep on until they got people jumping on their bandwagon. Until really there were no dissenting voices except mine. That was the power that they acquired for themselves. The power that was always going to take place, as I've repeatedly said, from the one taking a photograph that was misinterpreted. But, like I said, because she could portray herself as being professional, just like how the ad agency has tried to pit me in some way against the NHS, when really I really do question. They can make of this what they like. I really do question the type of role psychiatry's got within the NHS. Not sure whether it should have a role, but the type of role that goes on there, with what little oversight seems to go on with that institution within the NHS, I think needs to be looked at. But I'm not particularly interested if it is or it isn't. For me, you look at the stuff I'm reading, I'm more interested in stuff away from that. I'm not really interested. I'm certainly not interested in the local psychiatric unit. I'm not particularly interested in psychiatry. I can talk about it. I can give a critique. It's like the architects. I'm not particularly interested in them anymore. But it does serve a purpose to go over that stuff, like I said before, to provide context and perspective, balance and groundedness and stuff like that. Anyway, it's getting a bit serious, isn't it? I don't bloody know. So yeah, they're trying to cook up a scene. I'm not buying it. I'm trying to actually convey that. And when I do, they jump me up to try and subvert that. So that's sort of another indication. Anyway. Yeah. Do they want me to be, like I said before, do they want me to be bored of everything and everyone? It's like, I've said in this video, I would really like to do some exercise. I would really like to read some books that I'm interested in reading. And if the ad agency needs to condition people, then why don't they condition themselves into their hospitals and all the rest of it? Because I ain't interested. The one shrink did say about taking meds. Well, we don't want to see you in here again, in these places again. But they're going to keep coming out with all this palaver. And really, they're just setting themselves up for, they condition themselves as well as the audience into a cul-de-sac, which obviously they'll try all around me, as they tend to do, to write all these stories around me. And so I know how to deal with them, but they don't. So as far as I can tell, yeah, it's going on a bit again. I did say this was going to be brief, but look at that. Right, so yeah, yeah. The main thing I wanted to say was that I am being drugged up. That may change today, but if they've sort of pulled that stunt today, they're going. It's sort of an indication that they are trying to build things up in ways that are bizarre to me. I'd like to get a bit of exercise done. It's good for me. I'm 55. I need to do that. I'd like to read. I do like stimulating media. But because I want to set a particular scene and so on, it seems to me. Well, look at that. We're going to get ambulances and so on.